Shalom. Okay, Perek Tes. V'helig Tanya. Okay, we're speaking about essentially doing kiruv to our Yetzer Hara. That if you can get the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination inside of you, which is totally committed to destroying you, if you can give him a better plan, if you can convince him that that would not be the right thing to do, and we'll make it more sophisticated in a second, then he will come on board with the plan. What do I mean? The nature of the Yetzer Hara is not that it has a vendetta to kill a person. The nature of the Yetzer Hara is, it is a power of taiva. It's animalistic. The taiva, just like an animal, the instincts of the animal is like the whole thing. The animal just needs to eat, needs to reproduce. It's like, it's so part and parcel with its taivas, with its desires. It doesn't make intellectual decisions in a deep and profound, meaningful way. It's making things based on instincts. Even whatever intellect it has is also instinctual. Those taivas are for pleasure. So the animal soul wants just pure pleasure. The Yetzer Hara wants pure pleasure. So what if you could give him a greater pleasure? Then he'll say, okay, I'll go for that. How do you do that? If you tap into your godly soul to such a degree that you are living the godly soul, and the godly soul wants pleasure of intellectual pleasure of learning Torah, the pleasure of speech, of saying holy words, the pleasure of doing actions. When do you feel better? When you give or when you take? It's an experience of all human beings. When you take, you feel good for a little bit. But it's not as good as giving. There's something very deep. When you do something meaningful for somebody else, it feels good. There's a real deep feeling of goodness. So that's the world of the animals, of the godly soul. So why don't you get so in touch with the feelings of how good it feels to give? Even your animal soul will come on board. Okay, that's one of the ideas here. If you get so in depth and in deep with the feelings of how good it feels to learn Torah, so the animal soul says, you know what? This is good. This feels good. You have to train the animal soul, because really the animal soul is all about pleasure, taiva. You can harness that, yeah.
Isn't the whole not the whole topic, but essentially within our own inner topic, is to fight our Yetzer Hara. That's how we can get to enough. If we're fighting against nothing, if the Yetzer Hara is on our side, we don't have time to do something bad. There's no choice.
So that's the beginning of the journey. The beginning of the journey, which is for many people their whole life, is the pleasure they feel by overcoming the Yetzer Hara. The fear that the Yetzer Hara said, come and do this immoral thing, and he says, no. And you feel, wow, I feel really good from that. I feel good that I was able to overcome that desire. I wanted to, overeat or eat something that would not make me feel good. And I overcame that. There's a strength in that. I wanted to say that bit of Lashon Hara, that evil speech. I didn't say it. I feel good from that. Yeah.
Does it not seem almost too easy? You can get yourself up in the morning for 2 minutes, even though you don't want to, running, and then eventually you feel good by doing it. Is it the same way where even if you don't want to do it, but you still put on film every morning, after a certain amount of time will feel good?
Yeah. And it should have meaning to it, and have deeper meaning to it. Not just by rote, but with meaning. Yes, there's a feeling of goodness when you overcome something. And you were angry, you're an angry person. And you're about to get angry at your chavrusa, and you didn't. Or your wife, whatever. Anybody that you know, and you overcame that anger, and you feel good, you feel great, I overcame it. It's a great feeling. What we're talking about is you can get so tuned in to the feelings of the godly soul that the animal soul itself will say, I don't even want to fight him anymore. I want to join him. Okay, that's the highest level. That's the level that he can get to. He's mentioning it here though. It's important to know that.
That's the Beinoni.
That the Beinoni could work on this, and that's called B'chol Levavcha, B'shnei Yitzrecha. The Havdas Hashem Elokeinu B'chol Levavcha, with both your Yitzers. That even the Yetzer Hara becomes, remember, what is the Yetzer Hara? A koyach hamisava, a power to just have taivas. So imagine the taiva is for doing chesed, because you feel great when you help people. So yeah, harness the power of the Yetzer Hara for good. Remember, the Yetzer Hara is like a stallion, it's wild. If you can harness it, you're going to do good. But first you have to show it how good it feels to follow the godly soul. How good it feels when you really learn Torah b'iyun. How good Taisus feels. And the more that you taste that, and you show the animal soul, this is where the good stuff's at. You know, you have to become a connoisseur for nice things. You have to be able to really appreciate nice things. If a person, you know, if you say, what kind of food do you like? And the guy's like, still, like his 7-year-old taste buds, like mac and cheese. Remember that old one with like the powdered cheese? I knew people that lived on that 3 meals a day for about 10 years. Yeah. So you give that kid like a steak and like onions, like crispy onions on top, like, ew. It's not mac and cheese. Okay, sorry, you're kind of low down on your level of appreciate dry wine. So you give a kid you open up a couple $1,000 bottle of wine, and you know what good wine is, Yain Hungarian. So you have a sip of that, you realize Hashem put something nice into the Bria. You understand? So you have to now do that in spiritual matters. You have to become very sensitized to how good it could feel to be a giver, how good it could feel to learn Torah, how good it feels to put on tefillin. Okay? Look inside. Vihi. 4 lines from the bottom. Vihi nikreis because of av b'tanugim. That you could get to such a level where you are so much enjoying doing Avodas Hashem. You have this love relationship with God in the pleasures. Lis'aneg al Hashem. Me'ein olam haba. That for you, Shabbos is me'ein olam haba. Yom Shabbos hamenucha. You're learning Torah is oinig mamish. When I watch Itchy Meyer do everything is oinig. Such oinig, everything. The karas of the Shabbos, everything is smiling, oinig, everything. Like putting on 15 different pairs of tefillin, like me'ein olam haba. Va'oinig hi b'moya chachma v'seichel. The true oinig is beginning in the mind, that you take spiritual delight. You take spiritual delight in how good something feels when you work something out, when you understand something, when something rings with authenticity, when you get it, and it's so good. I love when Torah scholars make jokes. The Rosh Yeshiva made a joke a couple weeks ago. It was so sophisticated, and it was like quoting a Chazal, it's like an obscure Chazal, all to describe whatever, husbands and wives. It was so sophisticated, I cracked up. It was so funny. But like, if you didn't understand Torah, it'd be like, what? Like, I missed it. If you're like coarse, and your brain's not working properly, you wouldn't, it was so funny. I laughed out loud in the shir. And then everyone realized it was hilarious what he said. Okay? That you really start understanding Hashem, and there's a pleasure that is unbelievable in that space. This is called water. Water is the place from the mind. Water is cool. And water, like we know, we learned in the beginning of the Tanya, water is one of the elements. Each one of the elements makes up our soul. They all make it up together, and water is always the element associated with pleasure sensors. That's why we explain that every time that you find pleasure, there's always water. Tithe is pleasure, there's always water. Water makes all things grow. That's mine. The Zera or Zarua. That's the light that is being implanted in to make everything grow. Shivikudush's nefesh alakis, next page. Hamehafeches litoy vesbechinas hamayim shibenefesh bahamis. In my animal soul, what is the quality of water telling me to do? Don't say it out loud. Yeah, basically, not good, unhealthy, pleasurable thing. Meaning it's pleasurable, but it's a real big mistake. It's usually a vera associated. Looking at things I shouldn't look at, etc. It's all tithes. So why does the animal soul pull a person to those things? Because it's pleasurable. But that same animal soul, if you get this is such an important part of this parak. That same animal soul, all it's looking for is pleasure. That animal soul relates to very coarse pleasures, like just eating and drinking and all sorts of looking at things that would not be appropriate for his eyes to look at. Because it's just like quick and it's instinctual and it's very sweet, but then it becomes bitter quite fast. Imagine I could give it a higher pleasure, intellectual pleasures, very deep, refined pleasures, like the pleasures of giving, the pleasures of helping, the pleasures of understanding Hashem's Torah. I'm telling you, that joke that Rosh Yeshiva said it was so funny. It's like I could eat 1,000 ice cream bars. It would never compare to what the subtleness of that joke. I would say it, but it was like a whole build-up to get to the joke. I was like, what was the joke? Okay, it was a whole thing. It was like a joke for married guys. Literally, it was a whole build-up. It literally took 20 minutes, and then the punchline was hilarious. It's so funny. So, I'm still enjoying it. It's so, and he said it was such a straight face, like it was beyond. It was beyond. So, that nakuda, that you could enjoy something to such a high daraga, even more than a bunch of ice cream bars, is that now, instead of me looking for the ice cream bars, I take the higher pleasure, the pleasure of the nefesh halakis, and my animal soul says, I want to do that too. Okay? Me'afeches l'toives b'chinas hamayim shebenefesh habahamis shemehem bo taives tanuga olam hazeh mitchila. K'moishkos be'etz chaim, this is all mentioned in the Arizal Sharnon Peragimul b'shem Azoya. Shara nefach liyos toiv gomer. That yes, there is such a thing as flipping the Yetzer Hara into an ally. Not just the ally that I know now what to do. I'm fighting him, so now I know not to follow him. When I get this big taiva and the Yetzer Hara says, you should watch another episode of Netflix, whatever. So I know, that's probably the best thing not to do right now. Not that he helps me in that way. But he himself says, let's run to learn more Tosfos. Yeah.
Are we saying this is a very high level, or this is like?
It's a very high level.
This is not like, so it's like on level what?
This is something. This is not for the average Beinoni. This is something in higher levels of Beinoni. Where the Baal HaTanya, I want to make that clear. Where the Baal HaTanya is trying to get us to is we actually don't need to get to that level. What we have to get to is that there's going to be a fight, and that for the Beinoni, I never listen to that voice. The Beinoni is much more of a warrior king. This is the tzaddik who is totally, either tzaddik v'ralo, he subdued it. This time with tzaddik v'toivlo, that it flips over. This is a very high level. It's a mamish, very high. The chol levavcha, though, is for all of Klal Yisrael, that whatever we can do, and you'll get moments where it'll feel like it flipped. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
You'll get moments that it flipped.
Shabbos, like food, like
yes.
You can go into like a suda where it's like you feel like every video is in this, it's like
you can get hints of this and levels of this even at our darga, but then it goes away. Where the tzaddik, his whole life is he lives with this. Yes, Moshe Chaim.
So it sounds like a lot of times it makes it sound like the vanity is higher than tzaddik.
So it comes out in many places in the Tanya that it looks like that he did write the Sefer Shel Beinoni, that there is something to be said about the Beinoni. That
They're the one that's doing the fight.
They're the one in the fight. Yeah. Even though a tzaddik who started as a Rasha, and then Levi Chala B'Kirbi fought and fought and fought and killed, i.e. he killed it and then it turned into Toiv. He was Makar of the Yetzer Hara, so that's like David HaMelech. David HaMelech is the perfected Jew. We love David HaMelech. He's like our hero. King David is the hero. And it's interesting that all of humanity loves King David. Everybody knows King David is like no games. And that's why he's Mashiach. King David is where it's at. King David was a Beinoni who turned into a tzaddik. Yeah.
I feel like someone at such a high level that is like chasing that the ultimate pleasure, which is like going after the opposite of animal soul. They wouldn't want to kill the animal soul because they get pleasure from it.
So yeah, they don't kill it.
Listening to
Yeah, so that's on the level of Beinoni. The level of tzaddik is that you makar it. Remember, the animal soul is a koyach hamis'ava. It's a power of tithing. It just wants pleasure. It's pleasure seeking. So if you could give it a higher pleasure, then you become like this unbelievable power in the world, just running towards the highest pleasure, which is godly pleasures. Literally the highest pleasures. The nefach is toiv gomer k'mo yetzer toiv mamish. It becomes like another Yetzer Tov, but even stronger because it's instinctual. That's why it says by David HaMelech, he would wake up every day thinking that he was going to, make army plans and strategize, and then he just looked up and he was sitting in the base medrash by Shtender. His legs, he's like, I guess I have to go, defend the borders and deal with like some of this like battle stuff, being a king and all. And he would wake up and he's like, how did I get to my Shtender again in the base medrash? His body moved. It's because it knew the body becomes completely like being run seamlessly by the godly soul.
It's like instead of like, oh, I have the shwarm all over me, it's like
Yeah. Usually the body's like, let's go to the base measure. Nah, shawarma. It's like, no, come on, man, it's gonna be good. He's like, gotta try a little bit harder than that. And and we live in that world of the struggle. And that is, so the Beinoni never falls prey to it, even though he hears the voice of the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer will always say, no man, but, go over to that house party. And he says, no, I will not. It's not my thing. So now how does he do that? How does a person totally rid themselves of the desires of the Yetzer Hara? The desires of the Yetzer Hara are compared to filthy clothing. Filthy, I'm speaking cleanly. Begodim atsoyim. Feces saturated clothing. That a person who just engages in just the delicacies of this world for no other reason than they're there and just chase them because they're there, not connected to God in any way, as gifts from God, is connecting with the waste product of existence. You understand? Feces in Lumdis is the rejected element of a life-giving substance. There's a life-giving substance that gives me life. And then there's that which is rejected by the system. And it's interesting that Hashem made that feces should smell so bad. It's a fascinating thing. That's just the reality. And except children. who are nursing from their mothers. Their feces doesn't smell, which is also very interesting. Only once they start eating food does it start to smell. And therefore there's halachas. You could say brachas by it. The diapers are not considered a problem. For brachas, for tefillah, very fascinating. When they get older, if they're still nursing at older ages, then that's a separate story. But in the beginning, it's all very, very clean. It doesn't smell. Literally engaging in this world just for no other reason than it's like I'm an animal and I'm just drawn to the thing, like drawn to the trough to just eat, is like the waste product of the world. So that creates these layers on a person called begodim atzayim. So, which is shehem tanugei olam hazeh shu melubish behem. Just the delicacies of this world for no other reason than they're sitting in front of me, and all the sophistication about how I'm going to get them. They become this coating around the person. Hashem yirachim. V'chein shar kol hamidah shebaleiv, and all the other bad character traits of anger, of being impatient, all of them. Shem anfe hayira ve'ava. That all the things of ava, which means things that I move towards in this world, like just taivas, or yira, things that I'm afraid of in this world, like my boss, or the boogeyman, or unfounded fears of this world, which are all negative expressions of my animal soul, coming out and expressing themselves in thought, speech, and actions. So what do? Instead of living from those things, I remove those things. You Lashem levadai. I make my thought, speech, and action only for you, Hashem. V'kol koyach hadiber shebepeh. Whatever I talk about is for you, Hashem. V'amachshava shebemoyach. And my thoughts. You memuloyin min levushe machshava ve'adiber shel nefesh alekis levada. I make my thoughts and my speech fully influenced from my godly soul. What does my godly soul want to think about? Torah. About the good traits of another human being. About how your wife is so wonderful. And even after 30 years of marriage, you just keep seeing how amazing and beautiful she is. That's what your mind is occupied with. And what are your speech occupied with? Saying words of praise, complimenting people, not putting people down. So that the godly soul is always pushing you towards good things. Do we feel good when we put people down? We don't feel good. We feel horrible. That's why we put people down, to make ourselves feel like better. But then it just makes another cycle because I don't actually feel better, so I got to put people down more. That's all from the animal soul. The godly soul is good. The godly soul is intrinsically good. If we can get people in touch with their godly souls, then there'd be a lot less business for the psychologists. Because people would feel and know that they're good. Now what do I want to talk about all day? Torah. Pikudei Hashem Yesharim Mesamchei Leiv. When you learn Torah, it makes you happy. That's why we're allowed to learn Torah on Tisha B'Av? No, why? Because it makes you happy. Makes you happy. You learn Torah, you go around to people learning Torah, it's Freilichkeit. People learn a lot of Torah, they're like Freilich. Even the Baba been very Freilich. Just Freilich. They're like saying sugyas, laughing. It's Freilich. Freilich. Loi psik pul migirsa. That a person just all the time, his mouth is always saying Torahs. The koyach ha'maisid. And what about my actions? That's the third garment that either can be taken by my godly soul or, God forbid, the animal soul. What does my godly soul want to do with the garments called my body, called action? Shibi yodai. V'shar ramach evariv yu b'maise ha-mitzvah levad. That at any given moment I should think, what am I doing with my body? And if the answer is not doing a mitzvah, I have to recalibrate. Why am I not doing a mitzvah right now? So in this case, my mouth is actually speaking words of Torah. My hands are getting all involved and all excited, which, by the way, that's one of the things about learning Torah with your whole body, is you pulled it into all your amach evarim. You're mekadesh your whole body. It's not just a natural expression. That we learn Torah, you see, we get very into it. It's like a big thing, when you're learning Torah, stuff just starts moving. You learn Kol Atzmoisai, Taimar Nashem Micha Moicha. Everything starts moving. I'm giving tzedakah, I'm giving charity, I'm putting on tefillin, putting on tzitzis. Your body is involved. You're doing a mitzvah. You're running to get your wife something in the middle of the night. Like pickles, and ice cream, and peanut butter. At the same time, you run fast. Because that's what you have to do. And what thing can you never say?
No.
You can't say no. That's bad. Worse is saying, but I don't think anything's open right now. What do you mean? Find some, no problem. And you find them. Don't worry, you don't think God's going to help you? Okay? That's called, okay, I got to use this body to do mitzvahs. I have to help my wife. She wants that. You understand what I mean? It's not regular nights that she wants pickles, peanut butter. But if she's expecting, she might really need that. And the Gemara says very serious things about when a woman has cravings. Very serious things. You have to make sure that she gets that food. It's not a simple thing like I'm craving something. The Gemara says it could be like nefashos. It could be like a matter of her health, like seriously. Because it's such a strong crave and desire. Men can't understand this. Yes, men and women are different. It's very important that people understand that. I've yet to find a man who biologically gets pregnant. It's okay to say that a man doesn't get pregnant. That's very, very important. You could have men that are more effeminate and women that are more masculine, but she's still a woman. Those definitions will not change. Finishing the parak.
Be for president.
Shehu levush hashlishi shel nefesh elokis. Ach nefesh habahamis. What does the nefesh habahamis want? Sheme'aklipa ritzoyno lahapich mamish l'toivus ha'odam. Now, this is so deep. What does actually the animal soul really want? It's actually there to help you. It wants to kill you. So why is it there to help you? Because one, it turns you into a great person. If Mike Tyson had some twerp as a sparring partner, he would never be Mike Tyson. I don't mean Mike Tyson's a great person. I just mean I think he knows how to punch very hard and effectively. But that would not have happened if there was a twerp in the ring with him. You need to have somebody that's going to push you. So lahavdil elef alfei avdalas. For us, if you don't have a Yetzer Hara pushing you, you're never going to become great. And this is the famous analogy, l'toivus ha'adam she is gabraleh v'inatzchena, that you overcome him, kamashal ha'zaynish b'zar HaKodesh. Like the example of that prostitute from the Zar HaKodesh. This is one of the most secret and deep analogies from the Zohar, which we'll have to speak about next time. Amen. Kol Tov.